And of course, you know, like Kasi men are the most misogynist sometimes, not all of them, sometimes. I don't want to create stereotypes here. But in that conversation, the most, you know, Chilean and easiest or whatever, you know, like those typical talk, then you have to call it out and have a conversation that actually how you, you know, objectifying that woman is problematic. It might seem cute, but actually the language that you're using, this is the problem with it. That, you know, and objectifies women, and we have to think about these things. And also the rape culture as well. I think it's not okay until someone gives you a consent. And also having those conversations. And I think, and it's hard, and sometimes people listen, sometimes they don't, but I think what we can do is not to educate, but to have a frank conversation. How they take it, it's another thing. Because when you start educating, feeling like you want to change the person, but having a frank conversation is engaging with them with humanity and willing to be engaging with. And I think that makes a difference for me.
Thank you. Last round of questions.
Lacking empathy, is it, can we relate it to whiteness, or it's something which is universal? And to, is it Musa? Oh, okay. And I'm also wondering how you relate, you know, being clean to whiteness. So being clean. Is it purely something which is related to whiteness, or it's also something which can be universal?
Thank you.
I also just wanted to thank both of you for having this frank conversation, and it was really great listening to you. I have a question for Musa, which is perhaps a difficult question. And you've touched on this. I think we've talked about how your societies perceive your relationship with either a white or a black person, but I wanted to hear from you whether you felt you were equals in your relationship with Kim, or whether there was still a lingering power dynamic. I think I'm interested whether that ever goes away.
And then you here, and then
Thank you, Kim and Musa, and thank you, Pumla, for organizing this conference. When you were younger, you spent this time together, tongue-in-cheek. The question I have is, are you still engaged in projects? Because you mentioned that talk is not enough, we need to act. So are you continuing doing projects together? And then to you, Kim, and I'm echoing a voice from the audience also, going into white community is of tremendous importance for you, for me, to deal with our family, our neighbors, students in our schools, and talk about identity being formed, about our value system, and not be afraid to feel like I'm the overdo-good or the better white, but really getting down to difficult conversation like you have shared with us today. But I think, and I wish to hear your comment if you are engaged in that. It's as difficult as what you have described for us to go into our community, but it's necessary.
Thank you, Kim and Musa, for sharing your story. And I think what is coming out from your conversation, obviously, is issues of race, gender, language, culture, and these are, in most cases, uncomfortable conversations to have. And in your introduction, Prof, you did mention that this is one conversation in a series of conversations. I might perhaps missed it in your introduction, but what I want to know is what is it that we are intending to achieve by having these conversations, particularly when I'm looking at the audience. You know, I see it's mainly dominated by blacks from the audience here, but what is it that we're actually wanting to achieve by having this conversation?
What would you like to achieve? What would you like this kind of conversation to achieve? Not even
awareness awareness. I think that is important. But again, it's awareness enough, as she said. You know, it's awareness, it's us gathering here and hearing their story enough to really want to see the change, the real change which needs to happen in our country. You know, so that is what I'm wondering. And for me, having the conversation, yes, we'll be aware, we'll get their story, we'll be aware that there are these issues which are happening, but is that enough? And similarly, do people get the invitations and ignore it's one of those conversations, or what? You know, I was particularly sparked by the topic, that hence I attended, but I just wanted to find out what more can we really get from the conversation.
Last round. I just gave you the suppliers with you, but everyone thinks there's the 10 for the next one, which we'll talk about. Yeah. Thank you. So please, as you wish, whatever aspects of these questions, last questions you want to respond to, you don't have to respond to everything.
Okay. There was a sense of equalness. I think it's a complicated, you know, and this is the thing about blackness, it has contradictions and paradoxes. Where, because we work together in one level, so, you know, same level, there was equality in that level. You know, we had the same, you know, there were the irritations that we had with our boss were the same. We complained about the same things, the never-ending book that finally ended. We complained about the same things, like the everyday work experience as well, were there as well. And also, you know, the coming home, stressing about work or stressing about relationships that we had, or the joys of it. In that level, yes. The equality was there in that level. I think things, then you realize, again, this is the reality. I think when we, where the center was about to close down where we used to work, and for the very first time, you know, where I was depressed because I didn't know what to do. Okay, we went to a tarot reader together because we were like panicking, so we wanted to know our future beforehand, what's going to happen. But that moment where she was thinking about her PhD and applying for the Commonwealth, and for the very first time, and you're like, now I'm going to go home to the township because I have no clue what the heck I'm going to do. And I think that reality then showed the class background that we come from, the structural things that we come from, and even a space like university can, you know, some people call it a freeze, can freeze because different people come at the same time, and it becomes a freeze because it's a space where, you know, you're all in first year. You know, you're all dealing with the same problems of whatever subject. But the circumstances when that is removed from you, where do you fall? That makes it unequal. And I think part of whiteness and blackness, we are equal now, but where we fall, what becomes the burden for me and what becomes the burden for her, it's totally different reality. And I think when we're at the verge of losing our job, that became true for both of us. Because for me, my reality was going back to the township. Her reality was getting a Commonwealth scholarship elsewhere. And the shame that I will have going back, and probably her mother or father will supported her to get elsewhere. And I didn't have that cushion. And that doesn't make our reality the same. And what we need to give up and what we need to conquer or, you know, push forward, and what we're able to lose. And I think that didn't make it equal. And it's because of that reality, the structural reality of blackness, that makes it that.